Because our religion has never been one that's detached from the material reality of the world, as much as sometimes people would make it that way and talk in ethereal, kind of airy-fairy sort of terms, but really not rooted in reality. I think it has nothing to do with our reality. Our faith is incarnational, it's rooted in the reality, the nitty-gritty of our lives. So I'm going to digress for just a minute. I have to share a story with you. It's one of those stories, it's an episode that happened decades ago when my children were young. And we were out in central Pennsylvania at a state park. And it's one of those stories because it was such a revelation, such an epiphany to me, such a waking up call. It's what makes our approach to religion, our incarnational approach to faith, different sometimes. It's the one I used to tell all the time to the guys at St. Paul's down in Camden. Used to say, "Oh, Father, just number your anecdotes and just say, call out, this is one number 25, and we'll all laugh." Anyway, you're fresh meat, and I can tell you this. We were coming back, packing up the car, leaving the swimming hole in the state park, and with my kids. And this big fat guy comes waddling over. And he starts shouting, and he says, "Hey, are you from New Jersey?" Well, there's the license plate on the car, so I can't deny this, he said. So I said, "Yeah, I'm from New Jersey." He said, "Well, where are you from?" So I said, "Well, Camden." He said, "Oh," he said, "Oh, really?" He said, "I'm from Pennsauken. And I used to work at a radio station, WXYZ, whatever it was, some gospel radio station that worked out of Camden in those days." And he said, "Yeah, I worked there, but then the Lord led me here because now I got a bigger radio station and I can talk to more people and spread the word all around from here out here in central Pennsylvania." He says, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm an Episcopal priest." I said, "This is something you don't want to tell to somebody you don't, really want to talk to at this point." But he says, "I'm an Episcopal priest and the rector of St. Paul's in Camden." And he said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Oh." He said, "Really?" He says, "Where do you live?" I said, "Well, I live in Camden." And he gets very serious. He says, "Oh, you can't help those people by living there." And I thought about that. That was the end of the discussion, end of story in a way, but I thought about that for a long time. And suddenly realized, you know what? That's the difference between the way we approach the faith that God has given us. Because our faith is incarnational. We precisely can, do something we're amongst people and with people. Because our God isn't some distant thing that battles out words over an airwave somewhere or a radio station. Our God is flesh and blood, who lives where we live. And if you really mean him to be, if you really mean to present him to all people, you need to be there to do it in not ways that are not just words. Oh, yeah, includes words. St. Francis, didn't he say something like, proclaim the good news of God wherever you go, and use words if you have to sometimes. But there's more than one way to proclaim the good news of God, and for us who believe that the Word became flesh and came among us in Jesus Christ our Lord, we believe that God is about the life that we're actually living, not just some sort of ethereal or thing that we hear in our minds and just sort of adopt somehow like that in some sort of vague way. But he's right here all the time for us, when we need him, good times, bad times. And in a way, it's a comfort. But maybe not so if you're one of the people who would really like religion and God to be more like a fairy godmother than God. Someone who waves a magic wand and the little pixie dust falls down and our pumpkins turn into golden coaches and things like that. If that's the way you think God works, if he's going to make all your troubles go away and life's going to be just a bowl of cherries, I don't know why they say that. That's a phrase. I can't imagine a bowl. Anyway. If you think that life is going to be, it should be like that God should be able to just wave the wand and take all the badness away, take a good look at our Lord Jesus Christ, the Word become flesh, and you realize, look at the image of Jesus on the cross, contemplate that for a while, and realize that our God doesn't avoid any aspect of life. Now, do I have the answer for why we struggle, why we have suffering, why he couldn't make it all nice and pretty? No, I don't have that answer, and nobody does, because God is greater than any of us. And to presume that we can have a simple answer, a textbook answer for that is to assume that somehow we are greater than the mystery of God himself, and that we can somehow grasp it all, which we can't. But what we do know is what God has shown us in flesh and blood in the person of Jesus Christ our Lord. That this is what he's like. Compassionate, merciful, caring, full of justice and righteousness, and in strength and encouragement. And he's there with us, even though we don't understand why sometimes things have to go wrong and things have to be horrible. But he's there with us, enabling us to get through. So, St. Paul talked about all the armor of God, put on the full armor of God. In a sense, to say it very succinctly, is a beautiful imagery, by the way, and well worth kind of thinking about bit by bit. But what he's basically saying is, God himself is our strength. And God is with us in all things. And this is when we come to the gospel, what we hear Jesus basically saying, people, I'm the bread of life, the true bread. Anyone who eats this bread will live forever. This comes at the end, this gospel for today comes at the end of the 6th chapter in the gospel according to John, which is a gospel which begins with a feeding of 5,000, and it's all really about, for us, we say it's about the Eucharist. I mean, if you can't hear the Eucharist in the 6th chapter of the Gospel according to John, then I would suggest that maybe you really ought to go back and reread it and rethink. Because this is a chapter about the bread of life. This is a chapter about those who eat my flesh and drink my blood have life. If you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you don't have life. It's simple as that. It's about the Eucharist, but it's about more, because the Eucharist itself is about more than the Eucharist. It's about our very life, because there's implications. If we eat this bread and share the cup, if we share in the very life of Jesus himself, my flesh, my blood, the very life of the stuff of life, if we do that, then he's living in us and we in him, and this is a whole new, if you like, lease on life. It's a whole new way of understanding ourselves, to be, in a sense, incarnations as well. You heard the pious sort of comments about Jesus has no hands, no feet, no feet to go anywhere, no hands to do his work except my own. And this is absolutely true. This is the way God chooses to work. He lives within each of us, and that's the sort of the radical aspect of the gospel, the good news that Jesus brings to us about our God. God may be beyond our comprehension mentally, theologically even. But God is with us, amongst us, within us. He's here for us, and there and here with us at all times, in all places. Living out, showing forth his mercy, his compassion, his love, his care, his justice, his goodness, all those things that we understand God to be because we see it in the face of Jesus Christ, who is the pure, perfect image of the Father. Now, some disciples, we're told in the gospel today, found that hard to take. And I think some people do find it hard to take. Because they really, I think, deep down, we probably all have the impulse once in a while where we really like a fairy godmother who would wave the wand and take it all away. So it's hard to take to be told that, yeah, there's good news, there's really good news. And it's you. It's you too, I should say, because it's you not just alone out there, but you with God. And we become signs and symbols, if you like, within our own families, amongst our friends, and our communities, just as this building is a sign of something greater than each individual one of us, because it's a sign of the presence of God. So you and I are signs of the presence of God in this world. It'd be hard to take. And we might be inclined to say, this is what I bargained for. This is what like some of those disciples walk away. But Jesus turned to the 12 and said, "You want to walk away too?" And I love the answer of Simon Peter. You can think on it as you go home today. Lord, to whom else do we turn? You have the words of everlasting life. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.